The Local Government and Municipal Finance Committee will come to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Here.
Representatives Burns.
Here.
Shannon.
Present.
Breen.
Present.
Rogers.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Pies.
Present.
Zorn.
Here.
Paquette.
Here.
Bizat.
Here.
McGoll.
Here.
Preston. Mr. Chair, you have 13 members. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I need a motion to approve the minutes from our previous meeting. That motion is made by Representative Shannon. And seeing no objection, those minutes will stand approved. Seeing no members absent, interesting day here in local government as well, because we have an aging local government committee. We had a number of members who actually had birthdays this week. So I'd just like to quickly acknowledge that we have Representative Pies, Representative Hill, whose was yesterday, Representative Burns, whose birthday is today, Representative Rogers, who recently celebrated a birthday as well, and my birthday was yesterday too. So we had you guys didn't want to have September birthdays? I mean, goodness gracious. Well, I just wanted to first say happy birthday to everyone who recently turned a page on a new year of life. It is truly, I think, unique that we have 5 of us sitting here today who just had a birthday. So happy birthday to everyone. Today, we're going to begin with House Bill 4346, that if any recall, we did take testimony on this on May 17th. I will just share that in the time since May 17th, there has been continued and robust discussion about a number of bills pertaining to the Open Meetings Act that I believe I know are still forthcoming. And this bill specifically, speaking to the need of this for some of our members here and specifically retirement boards, we're going to bring this up for a vote here today. I do have some cards to read in. Actually, just one. I have a card here not wishing to speak in support of the bill. Noah Smith from the Michigan Association of Public Employee Retirement Systems. And I know for a fact that I had a comment wished to be provided by Representative Rogers. So, Representative, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will be brief. I appreciate the opportunity. I just want to be consistent, and for the record, I think we need to figure this out more globally. I appreciate the bill's sponsor and the bill's sentiment, but as I said in the insurance committee earlier this year, when we had a kind of what I refer to as a one-off, I think we need to do a comprehensive approach and fix this for everyone. So while I will be supporting this in concept, I also have some concerns from my own district that have been expressed about individuals being on boards out of state and no longer having connections to the community. So I'm also interested in working with the sponsor to potentially have some guardrails around what that looks like before it heads to the full floor for a vote. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And I will just share that in keeping with that same consistency, we have had a great deal of conversation with stakeholder groups about those topics specifically, and I do believe that we are going to, again, as part of this greater Open Meetings Act overhaul, in concert with the leadership of Representative Burns here, have those concerns addressed here at a more holistic approach here shortly. So with that, I needed a motion to report House Bill 4346 with recommendation. That motion is made by Representative Breen. And Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Representative Burns.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
Breen.
Aye.
Rogers.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Pies.
Yes.
Zorn.
Pass.
Paquette.
Pass.
Bizat.
Pass.
McGoll.
Pass.
Preston.
Pass.
Mr. Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0 nays, 5 passes. House Bill 4346 is reported with recommendation.
The motion carries. All right. With that, we're going to move on to House Bill 4921. And before doing so, we're going to go at ease, call the chair.
The Local Government and Municipal Finance Committee will come to order. We have Representative Fitzgerald here to testify today. And Rep, before you begin, just want to wish you a happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I guess it's pretty unbecoming to wish yourself a happy birthday, so thank you very much.
Fair enough.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, Madam Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to speak to my House Bill 4921. This bill really speaks to actually part of the reason I got into public service. My passion for school zone safety and pedestrian safety began when I was first considering joining the city council of my home city, the city of Wyoming. Pedestrian accidents and fatalities involving vehicles were all too common in the news. And when I went to speak with community members and neighbors and residents, the number one issue that I heard regarding their community was excessive speed in their neighborhoods, and many of which were in close proximity to schools. The reason for this is in my district, I have 8 public school districts actually represented either in whole or in some portion of their district. That actually includes the state's smallest school district by land area, the mighty Godfrey Lee Legends. And various schools are adjacent to roads with varying speed limits from anywhere from 25 to 55 miles an hour. And I would think that if you thought about your own districts, the locations of schools back home probably do not seem very different. You know, they're on roads that might be 2 lanes of travel, 4 lanes of travel, 25 miles an hour in a residential neighborhood along some main thoroughfare. The situations are very different for every single school and in many cases different levels of education. It has been proven time and time again that speed and speed in excess of a posted speed limit, for that matter, significantly increases the likelihood of an accident. And the greater the speed, the more likely an accident's potential for injury or a fatal outcome. School zone speed limits are already reduced to keep our children safe, but many local and county public safety departments do not have the capacity or the officers to continually enforce those twice a day, multiple times a day, 5 days a week. Thus, we now have an opportunity to use fair and impartial technology to improve the safety of our school zones for students, faculty, and parents, while also improving safe driver behaviors. House Bill 4921 before you today would allow for a county or local authority to utilize radar or LiDAR technologies, as well as photo and video technologies for identification purposes only, to issue speed violations in school zones. These violations would be only for those traveling greater than 10 miles an hour over a posted school zone speed limit. So your occasional 29 and a 25 or 40 and a 35 would not qualify for a remote citation, though I would encourage that is still against the law, and I would not encourage anyone to do so, but it would not be eligible for the citation. The picture used for identification would also only be of the rear portion of the vehicle. We're not trying to take a picture of the driver, their characteristics, anything that they may be doing behind the wheel, but simply capture the plate, since we have only rear plates in the state of Michigan, as we all are very well aware, the make, model, and color of the vehicle. We're looking at time over distance, right? We're looking at really the behavior and the actions of that vehicle at a specific instance of time. Much like other legislation we've actually heard this year regarding speed enforcement cameras and technology, the owner of a vehicle who receives the citation would be able to sign an affidavit saying that they were not the operator of the vehicle at the time that the recording took place or when the law was broken. These technologies used are relatively generic. Radar and LiDAR are used throughout law enforcement agencies across the state and by various vendors and companies who have access to that technology. These are already utilized. These are very common, generic if you will, but they serve a purpose of, again, improving driver behavior in areas where we have some of our most vulnerable members of society and those who are not always the most aware of how to safely cross a street. I'll tell you, I came from a family where I wasn't allowed to wear a hood as a kid on a coat or a sweatshirt because my grandparents thought it meant that I was going to get it shoved in a car door and dragged to my death when I was leaving for school. I wasn't allowed to wear a hood up because it meant that if I was going to cross a street I could look and the hood would be obstructing my view and I would step into traffic. Now, my parents and my grandparents especially may have taken it a bit too far, but there are a lot of hazards when traveling to school, when we have parent drop-off, when we have buses, when we have motorists who have had that frazzled, crazy morning, and they're simply just trying to get their child to school. They're trying to get themselves to work. That is a very challenging time, I know, in many families' lives. But dozens of states have already implemented such laws. Florida, Iowa, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, just to name a few, and many others are still considering these laws today. House Bill 4921 gives Michigan the opportunity to prioritize child safety, student safety, faculty, parent, and community safety by implementing these technologies and utilizing them in a safe zone, school zone, where these can be, again, used to improve driver habits around some of our most vulnerable residents in Michigan. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and I'd look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Shannon has a question. Please go ahead.
A couple questions, because I did see in the policy document that this is similar to the Snyder bill, which I'm familiar with. Just a few questions as far as, in the Snyder bill, first of all, let me say that there aren't points that are involved. This is a civil infraction, right? So there's no points involved. But in the Snyder bill, the first violation is a warning, and then also there's increased fines after subsequent violations, and then after, I believe it's 3 years, kind of start fresh all over again if there are increasing fines. So that's my question.
Yeah, so this is simply, no, there's not necessarily a warning system to this. There is a requirement, though, that there would be a public notification, public education period. So there would be 30 days where the public would be required to be notified that these changes are coming, that this technology would be implemented. There again would be very apparent and blatant signage saying that you're entering a zone where camera speed enforcement would be utilized. It's only during those school zone hours, so this wouldn't be running at, say, midnight. This would only, again, be running during those school zone operations hours. But no, this would be a $150 civil infraction. That $150 fine would stand on your first offense, again, following that notification period.
I guess what I meant about a warning is that the first violation that you have, it comes in the mail as this is a warning. The next one, you will get a fine of $150.
I can absolutely take your feedback. It's currently not authored that way, so we can definitely work to make sure that we have the correct notification so that, again, this is part of driver education and safety habits as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Shannon. Representative Bazat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy birthday. I'll start off with a positive.
Comes the negative?
No, I really
Thank you.
I like your bill. It's got some great things in it. But my concern, first off, the stakeholders, MSA, MSP, prosecutors, and the Chiefs Association, have they had input into this, and what do they say?
So we have consulted a number of those stakeholder groups. We have seen relatively broad support from a number of stakeholder groups. I believe that many who are here today in this room have issued cards stating their position that I think will be stated later, but I know that this is certainly something that, in terms of public safety, because it is left to the local unit, local or county, there is no requirement that a third party be involved in the implementation of this. It just is simply permissive language. So if that wanted to be done in-house, you have that opportunity. Again, if there are additional comments to make this more supportive of our local law enforcement agencies who would be, again, responsible for the administration of this law, I would welcome that, though there has been, again, initial feedback already taken.
Okay, Madam Chair, if I may. The only concern I have is, I know I'm familiar with a few of them, not the ones you mentioned, but specifically in Arizona, they do have a frontal camera to identify the driver, and I'm supportive of that. Mm-hmm. But I see so many policy issues and problems with just taking the registered owner, so I just wanted to express my opinion on that.
Yeah, the reason for that rear only photo is, again, we only have one technical identifier of the vehicle, which is that license plate on the rear of our vehicles here in Michigan. To that end, though, too, we're also looking to make sure that this is equitable. That the concern would be that if a driver's characteristics, whether that be age, race, disability or ability level, income level, could be extrapolated from the data of the driver of the vehicle, that again, this is trying to eliminate some of those hazards of impartiality of enforcement. So this is the reasoning behind that, and I'd be happy to discuss with you further as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Bagol?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have a couple questions. I just want to clarify, did you say there's no points involved, whether it be the first offense or third offense or anything? It's just a fine?
I believe that to be correct. I can confirm with you, but it is a civil infraction.
Okay, and if I could, just one other question. It says that the vehicle owner files an affidavit with the clerk of the court stating that the registered owner was not the operator. So if they received the notice in the mail and signed the affidavit saying it wasn't them, would there be any requirement to appear in court and testify that wasn't him, or is it done with, or are you required to turn the name of the person that was operating the vehicle over, or how would that work?
You're not required to turn over anyone else's name. That affidavit being a legally binding document, should you say that you're not the operator and then it was turned out that it was you, I mean, that would be perjury, right? And that's a huge offense. And so this is, no, it would only be that signed affidavit that would be required to technically say that you were not the operator of the vehicle at that time. If you have feedback on how to maybe strengthen that or improvement areas, I'd be happy to take those and continue to work on a potential substitute or amendment to that bill. But at this point, that is how that is drafted.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Breen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. You're not there yet with kids in school, but I am.
I can't wait.
And enjoy it while you can. They become teenagers eventually. So this is similar to the legislation that we have heard on. It's gone through judiciary before. I think it's in other committees now on speed enforcement in construction zones, the stop arm legislation. To me, this makes absolute sense. It's certainly safer than adding another vehicle on the road. Some schools, they don't have along that pathway next to the schools an easy place for police to park. And by keeping another vehicle off the road, obviously that makes sure that the kids stay safer. A couple quick questions. I just want to clarify. This is permissible, correct?
Correct. Permissive only.
And the tech captures the image, but it is verified by human eyes on law enforcement.
Correct. Law enforcement would sign, it would create evidentiary support that this was reviewed by law enforcement and, yes, would be submitted in part of the proceedings.
The technology itself, is this run by a third party or is it run by the governmental entity? Is it supplied by a third party? Does that third party have access to any of this information?
That's a great point. So it is permissive to do. It is permissive to also utilize a third party. So it may be the public safety department themselves or the county sheriff, if you will. It may be a third party who is contracted because they have ease of technology implementation. So there is no requirement that you use a third party vendor, though it is allowable. But the third party would not have access to the data captured. That would be only in the hands of law enforcement. And then we require that following the resolution of that citation, that data be destroyed. So that would not be something that lingers for a year after the resolution of that citation. It would be destroyed immediately. And I'll tell you that in terms of the amount of data stored, I would suspect that server costs to have this data captured, stored off-site securely, you'd want to have that information destroyed quickly, again, to free up overhead and cost.
Okay. A quick follow-up. You already covered the easily rebuttable presumption if it wasn't the actual vehicle owner behind the wheel. Have you received any feedback from law enforcement other than the ones on this committee?
Have we received comment from law enforcement?
Correct.
Not beyond what has already been stated, no.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Hoskins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Some of my questions have been answered, but as we were talking about, as you brought up the other states that have implemented this, is there any data just to suggest that how much, like as far as the citations, the amount of citations that have been issued, how effective it's been in those other states? Has it reduced the amount of speeding in the school zones in those other states?
I can work to get you, numbers and data to support that, but I'll just tell you anecdotally that the comments coming from these other states is that this has definitely helped to improve driver habits. Again, you talk about who speeds through your neighborhood most frequently. It's the people who live there, right? And so the people who are going to school every day to drop their children off or to pick their children up, they're very familiar with those surroundings. You get comfortable with that right turn or that left turn or that straightaway where you can, get over the hill a little bit. That this is, again, anecdotally been demonstrated to really make people more aware of their surroundings when operating a vehicle, and especially in school zones.
All right, thank you.
Representative Preston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I like the bill and concept. I've just got some issues with it going forward. Driver identification is one of the things that I'm most concerned about. The vehicle doesn't get the ticket, the driver should. I think having an aspect that identifies the driver is imperative. Also, speaking to a question asked earlier, the lack of a warning aspect. We want to correct behavior, not go right away into a punitive monetary aspect. I think adding a warning as a first infraction would cut down on the amount of litigation, excessive paperwork that these law enforcement agencies would have to incur. And that takes me to my third point, which is the additional resources that these departments are going to have to bring to bear to implement these. If with adding a warning into this, I think you could take, probably a good percentage, of the manpower to implement this off of them and correct the behavior at the same time. So just my thoughts.
Thank you for that feedback. I'll work to incorporate that, and hopefully we can come to a good resolution there. Thank you.
Representative Rogers?
Thank you. Some of my questions have been answered already, but just a follow-up on one of my colleagues' questions regarding, because I think there was quite a few questions in the construction zone one about privacy issues. So, Chair, you had said something to the effect of the evidence or the video would be destroyed immediately. How would that work then if someone was appealing? There's no evidence then left to go back and look at?
Right. It's 90 days following the resolution of the citation. So once that has been finalized, either the appeal has been heard, but basically once there is no pending action on that citation, the evidence would be destroyed. Yes.
And then is it left up to the local law enforcement to verify that the third party has all the technology, bells and whistles? Tech is not my area of expertise, so I apologize for not having the
I think bells and whistles is pretty
standard.
Good. Yes.
But is that left up, is the kind of onus or burden of making sure that that third party is, up to speed and has all the privacy standards? Is that burden left on the local law enforcement, or is there anything in the legislation about vetting these third parties, or how does that practically work?
There's no language pertaining to how those vendors would be selected. I believe that it would fall to law enforcement to make sure that basically what they have or from a third-party vendor would be satisfactory to enforcement of the law. We want to make sure they would be making sure that the technology utilized would be able to satisfy the requirements placed in this bill, and potentially make sure that this is, again, something that could be done over, again, you're turning off the cameras, you're turning on the cameras. Maybe there is a piece of equipment that is, above and beyond necessarily what this law may provide. That's, again, left up to the purview of that local enforcement agency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minority Vice Chair Zorn?
Thank you, and happy birthday to you and all you to my left down there. It's always a nice day to celebrate another year of life.
Yes.
The question I have is that it seems if there's a citation wrote and it's being appealed because it wasn't the driver that's driving it, it seems like there's a number of steps that's got to be made before it can be cleared up. Is there enough time? We know how fast government works. Is there enough time between the beginning and the end, and the end would be where they do nothing, and there's a warrant out for somebody's arrest?
Mm-hmm.
My concern is that this could get tied up in the process somewhere, and time runs out, and that person that wasn't driving could end up getting a warrant.
So you're saying that potentially if this citation reached you, you didn't know that it, or didn't reach you, and there's this pending infraction on your record, that it could create the possibility that a warrant would be out for your arrest on this $150 infraction? Is that what you're asking? Okay. I'll have to check with our law enforcement partners to confirm, what that would look like, but I don't know. We have not had that feedback provided that this would potentially create the opportunity for additional arrest warrants for the civil infraction. Yeah.
Well, if I could, Chair, my concern is that it gets tied up in the court system. And to no fault of anyone except for the system, being so slow, they could end up getting a warrant for their arrest when they wasn't actually the one driving.
So again, I think that we can definitely discuss this more in our offices or with stakeholder groups. But I think that the point being is that affidavit, being able to say I was not the one operating the vehicle, would help to clear that, seeing as that is a legal document saying, I'm aware that this vehicle was used in this infraction, but I was not the operator of the vehicle. And I think that does speak to what Rep. Preston was mentioning as well, is that the identification of the driver, to help to try and streamline some of that, would help to create that personal responsibility, if you will, to ensure that we can, again, get the infraction to the correct person, not simply the owner. And so we'll take that feedback back and see if we can make this more clear and satisfy your question here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bazat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thinking about a couple things. I don't mean to. This is a good thing that we're talking about here, so very positive. So hope you don't take this as a negative.
We like good conversation and good dialogue.
But it would end up into a bench warrant if they don't respond. That would be down the road. The courts would issue a bench warrant, and then we would pick you up. But my question is this going to be mandatory? I look at my district and I'm thinking, all the districts that I've got from middle school, elementary, middle, high school, is it going to be mandatory or is it going to be selective enforcement?
Permissive only. So again, I'll use my city of Wyoming as the example. I mentioned that we have 8 public school districts that are represented in the district, 7 within the city. It would be permissive to that local unit of government. So while I have a district that might bleed from both Grand Rapids and Wyoming, they may be looking at only the Wyoming school zone. Or maybe it's the county enforcement for a township school, right, on that 45-mile-an-hour highway in that area. But it would be that local jurisdiction that would be implementing. Yep.
Thank you. Representative Breen.
Thank you for the follow-up. Just to speak to some of the comments that we heard earlier, these cameras are going to catch a fraction that is already occurring. People may have been doing this before, they just didn't get caught. And I understand that there would be concern as to how much burden this would add to the courts. However, we are also freeing up law enforcement to do other things. They don't necessarily have to sit there and monitor the school speed zones. And with this public education and 30 days notice ahead of time, hopefully the word will get out. Everybody hits the brakes when they see a cop car, whether they're speeding or not. It's a human reflex. I'm sorry, Sheriff Bazat. But I think what might be helpful to the committee, some of us have had more experience with law enforcement, hopefully because they were either working in the system and not being inadvertently part of it, outline the process, like a timeline. Camera captures the image. It goes to this person observes. If the person doesn't pay, then what would happen? It was mentioned before, a bench warrant would likely be issued. What are the penalties then? The fact of the matter is, if you're speeding in a school zone, you shouldn't. This is hopefully going to help correct some of that behavior and keep our kids safer, keep our police officers safer. So I'm very happy you brought this forward, and I'm just saying for the purposes of not only getting it through this committee, but all the way to the governor's desk, an outline of the process might be helpful.
I'd be happy to compile that and prepare that for our next hearing on this bill. I would like to just speak to quickly about the capacity for law enforcement. You know, in my city of Wyoming, we have a community of about 77,000 persons. At any given moment, though, we have only 6 road patrols on our streets at any given time. We have one shift sergeant who would also be floating and roaming as well to provide support. But as many law enforcement members know, any call today really requires 2 cruisers to respond, right? There's the primary and then the supporting. That means that if we have a vehicle sitting and taking speed enforcement time for an hour before and after dismissal, you're having capacity issues on any given shift in probably many cities and townships across this state. So this is providing that we're utilizing technology that can help us get to the same result without having to utilize true manpower to accomplish that. So I do believe that there's a strong benefit there as well.
Thank you. Representative Paquette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate your testimony. In terms of, I guess, some of the egregious instances like reckless driving, or say there was a crime committed and then the person drove through a speed zone, how could this evidence be used in maybe a case such as that, or in a reckless driving? If someone's going 50 miles over the speed limit, they get tagged in this, they're just going to get a $150 fine, or could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, before I don't want to put my foot in my mouth here, because I guess if there was an incident down the road, if you will, you know, we've heard of instances of ATM cameras and other cameras being utilized to demonstrate that something took place. So if you had somebody who was driving 50 miles an hour over the speed limit in an active school zone, you have an accident down the road, I don't know how a judge or an attorney might not be able to utilize this technology saying, yeah, there was a citation issued and this, we have, you know, time over distance. We have somebody going 50 miles an hour, you know, not a quarter mile before where the incident occurred. But a reckless driving infraction could not be issued by this system, by this technology. I think that would maybe, again, going back to law enforcement, indicate maybe we should have we should actually place a unit there, a manned unit there, to ensure that there's a police presence to, again, improve driver habits. But that infraction could not be issued under this legislation.
Gotcha. Just because when you got people like Bazat who don't even slow down when they see a cop, you know, just get curious.
Hammer down,
Thank you.
right?
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Representative Paquette. Are there any further questions from members? All right, seeing none, Rep. Fitzgerald, your time in the hot seat is done, and the committee will go at ease.
All right, committee will come back to order. Thank you so much for those great questions and the dialogue about this bill. I look forward to continuing to build and improve legislation. I think that this is really great to hear so many good questions from each side of the aisle, that this is really what we're looking for in terms of good policy making, and I appreciate everyone's comments and diligence here. We do have a couple of cards to read in. We have a card not wishing to speak in support of the bill, John Lamacchia from the Michigan Municipal League. We have not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Kelly Abercrombie with Blue Line Solutions. We have not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Mike Spence from Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, or SEMCOG. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill, who provided written testimony, Todd Scott of the Detroit Greenways Coalition. All right. And with that, thank you again for your time here this afternoon. Seeing no further business before the committee and no objection, this committee will stand adjourned.